theyeshiva.net.
Okay, so we're in the middle of 156. So let's recall. A keves, a sheep, is a compassionate animal by nature. There's different animals. Different animals are compassionate, serene, aggressive, benign, brutal. And a keves by nature is a rachamim. It's full of rachmanis, and even the koil, he says, evokes rachamim. What's the definition of the rachamim here? So we spoke, b'rachamecha harabim rachim aleinu. A major part of davening is a person having compassion. Why is compassion for the self, for the soul, so important? Because that itself reminds you the greatness of who you are. The fact that I can have compassion for myself and compassion for other people means that I don't belong here. And the very fact that you feel you don't belong here, you have compassion, that itself, it's like what Pinchas said about the macha that you make once in 3 years, that itself is a tremendous aspect in life. The ability to know that you lost something and you have rachmanis for it. If I don't know that I lost anything and therefore there's no rachamim, that is the worst. Because that means the person doesn't even know there was any value to lose. The fact that I have rachamim, that already means that there's something precious that I feel bad for. There's a compassion here. What's the compassion? Passion is you're a piece of Ein Sof and you're in Golos. You have an neshama that's a chelik elokam mimal and it's enslaved. You have such dignity and it's been sabotaged. But that rachamim itself underscores the sensitivity to what the person is. The Gemara says, Talmud Chacham shenimtzer revav al bigdoi chayav misa. There's a stain on his beged. It's noticeable. It's noticeable. So there's a word from the Kotzker that the reason is chayav misa is because there's only one stain. Shenimtzer revav, only one. But al pi pshat, what's the word? The word, of course, is if somebody is you're wearing a shirt and somebody pours chocolate milk on it and then vanilla ice cream on it and then a cranberry sauce on it, right? At some point you just give up. You don't feel bad for your shirt. It's already so dirty, a little more dirt. Only when you have a beautiful, you're wearing a tuxedo and somebody puts a little stain on it, oh my God, you feel bad for your shirt or for yourself. Why? Because it's so noticeable. A construction worker or a miner, he's in the gutter, he's in the nitty gritty, he doesn't start saying, I got dirty. Of course, you're supposed to be dirty. That's what you do for a living. That's what you do. At night, you'll take a shower, you'll be clean. The moment you're not noticing that you're getting filthy, it means that filth already became part of me. There's nothing to notice. There's no rachamim. The fact that I notice it, I have compassion for it, that in itself underscores how profound it is, how real it is, how authentic it is. And he says the Midas HaRachmanis has the koyach to be ma'orer ava. It has a tremendous koyach to bring out, to be able to sit with that pain, with that awareness of what happened to this person, what happened to this person's soul. That awareness itself brings out the positive qualities that have been in exile, which you had rachamim about. You would think, what's the shaykhis? You have rachamim. No, he said the koyach HaRachamim is to bring out the ava. Avinu of Arachamon, Amirachim, v'seim b'libeinu. That helps. It helps the bina. V'seim b'libeinu bina. First of all, have Rachamim to give us the bina, and that helps with the bina. Lahavin, Lahaskil, Ulakayim is called Dirisamatarasacha ba'ava. So the carbon tamid, which comes from the sheep, introduces to tefillah, which is b'makam carbon tamid, the concept of Rachamim. Specifically, he says, Kirachel ufnei goyzezeh ne'elama. As the sheep is sheared from the wool, she's always quiet. She doesn't revolt. She doesn't protest. From what's the wool? The wool comes from the ohr, from the skin, which separates between the basar and the tzemer. You will not have hair growing from flesh. Hair or wool grows from the ohr. So the ohr is the chatzitza, the mafsik, between the basar and the tzemer, because from the basar you're not going to have cyrus. And now when they take off the tzemer from the ohr, the rachel, the sheep is ne'elama, she's silent. This is a mashal. What's the nimshal? So he says, v'yuvan zel l'mayla. This will also be understood l'mayla. When we say l'mayla, what does he mean l'mayla? L'mayla, he doesn't mean the second floor or the third floor of the building or the roof. L'mayla is based on what we explained many times, that the concept of ishtalshalus is that everything below is a manifestation of something above. There's nothing in this world that doesn't first begin in the spiritual world and then it evolves. So Lamaila means when you see something Lamata, you know that the same thing is Lamaila. Just like when you see the tears, you know that there's an emotion that precedes the tears. So whenever you see something in a sheep down here, it exists also Lamaila. Now that itself is a tremendous yesod. That means there's nothing in science or physics or mathematics or astronomy or cosmology that is not a mashal for Elikus. If it exists in this world, it means it's a mashal for an imshal. If it's lamata, it's also lamaila. That's why another big yesod of Teres HaBaal Shem Tov, that there's nothing in the world that is not connected. There's nothing in the world that you can't use. You can't use la'avodas Hashem. Everything. Why? It's not stam, a cute little vart. It's a yesodistic idea. Because if it exists lamata, it's coming from lamaila.
Is this lamaila that we don't like Hechel?
No. Yeah, but lamaila means if it exists in a sheep, if it's the rule in a sheep, that means it's a divine concept that's manifested in the kevis. And the same, here he's going to talk about a kevis, but the same is, that's why every nekuda in the world, you take a hike and you look at something, you study something about any nekuda of nature, if it's a real thing about the olam, it exists also l'mayla. It doesn't start with the geshem, it starts with the ruach. It has a counterpart also in olam aruchni, and therefore it has tremendous lessons. It has a tremendous toichen. There's a godly reality that's being conveyed. There's nothing. The Balatanya and Tanya in Perek Ches, he says that the Rambam and the Ramban, they learned Chachmas Chitzonius. They learned a tremendous amount of what we call secular sciences or secular wisdom. And he says, Yadu lishtamish behen l'toirasai l'avaydasai. Every nekuda of Chachma could be used for Avodas Hashem, could be used for Torah. It can also not be used. It can be used against Torah. We know that. That's what's called klipas noiga. It can go both ways. But the point is that there's an oimek here. If you know, you could use every nekuda l'avodas Hashem or l'Torah. So therefore, when you see something lamata, it means it's also lamayla. That's what lamayla means. So he says, "V'yuvan ze lamayla ke'inyan sidus heim hein tzirufei oisius hamislapshois bebri yitzira asiya liyos me'ayin liyesh v'davar nifrit." Just translate. Whenever you talk about hears in Nister, it represents the configuration of letters that come into the worlds to create from nothing something and something separate. And for there to emerge the letters, which are the strands of here, in order to create separate worlds, you need to have the Ohr. The Ohr is basically called the Masach Mavdil. It's a partition, a veil that separates between the Basar and the Cyrus, and this is called the Rakia, the firmament. The Goizizim HaCyrus, those who come to the sheep and take a scissor and cut off the hair, what are they doing? It represents separating, detaching the oisius, the tzirufei oisius, from their source. Really, the oisius, like the hair, is getting its nurture from the soul of the animal. All the hair that grows, as long as it's attached, it's growing because it's receiving its nurture, its creativity, its life from the body, from the body's power, from the body's electricity. But then when you cut it, you're separating the oisius from the shayrish. Liya is b'bchinas nefrada mamash. So what happens now is it becomes really separate. And here he puts in the word mamash. The oisius himself creates oilamas hanefradim. That's the way it's supposed to be. When you cut the hair, you create pirud mamash, real separation. The person knows nothing about their inner life. They follow only the life of the body and the animal soul. The tamu v'nichrusu misharsha. They get cut off from their source. What's pshat? They get cut off from their source. What's pshat? They get cut off from their source. That they start believing that they're really separated from God. They start believing that they and their world, their olam haza, is really, really davar nifred mamash. That emunah, that conviction, or not conviction, that idea, that notion, that you're truly, truly separated, you're detached, this means that the hair was cut off. How is he touching Rachel here? Not Rachel. Rachel is the sheep. Rachel is the sheep. Rachel, after they shear her hair, she was quiet, she's barren. What's that, barren and fertile? She'ena moiled is b'chinas ava v'yira. So there's no love anymore, there's no awe anymore, there's no children, which represents ava and yira, she'en b'chinas habanim. Why? Because Rachel was quiet in the presence of those who shared. Lekachi b'chinas hakara she'ena moiledes. V'lo zeh tiknu b'tikun chatzois, tikun Rachel. We have a tikun chatzois yidden. So the Tikkun Rachel and Tikkun Chatzos and Tikkun Leah. If your siddur has Tikkun Chatzos, so in the back there's Tikkun Rachel and Chatzos, Tikkun Leah. Tikkun Rachel is La'orer B'chiyah V'Rachmanis. K'ma shekasav Rachel Mevaka Al Bana. V'achar kach Tikkun Leah Hi Eim Habanim Smecha. Sheyasimcha Ba Acha Leidas Ha'ava K'shanasas Eim Habanim. When you become a mother of children, Eim Habanim, children represent the emotions of love and awe. Sha'az Tisaneg Al Hashem. That is the Leah, Tikkun Leah and Tikkun Chatzos. There's the stage of Rachel, the stage of Leah. Rachel Mavaka Al Bana, and then there's Eim Habanim Smech. What's the teichen that's being conveyed here? The sheep is a mashal. Kevis is Rachmanis. What's Ma'odah, the biggest Rachmanis? That your hair is cut off and you're just quiet, you don't protest it. Other animals, you try manipulating them lightweight, they'll give you azab brik. What did they tell you? I'm learning. What did they tell you? Whatever. You don't start up. A keves is completely surrenders. It's a very docile animal. It's submissive. It acquiesces. It's mevatel itself very easy. What's the teichen in ruchnius? It represents a particular idea. Cyrus here, every hair is separate. Here also don't have nerves. Meaning you cut the hair, it's not painful. Chas v'shalom, somebody cuts off their pinky, we know the pain. You cut off the hair just like when you cut off the nails, it's not painful. Why is that? Because the hair has chiyus, it has life in it. If it wouldn't have life in it, it wouldn't grow. But nonetheless, it doesn't have that level of chiyus that the flesh has, that the fingers have, the arteries have, the sinews have, the bones have, or even the meat has, the basar has. Even the skin, the ohr. You can't compare the basar to the ohr, but that is even the ohr. Mashenkin, the cyrus, they also have chiyus. They also grow and they live. But the chiyus is much smaller, it's much more minute, it's not so recognizable, to the point that you could cut it off. And each cyrus is separate, and it only grows from the skull. It gets its chayas from the mayach. Everything gets its chayas from the mayach, from the brain. Without the brain, hairs can't grow. Nothing else can happen. But it has to go through the skull. There's the skull, the gulgoilus, the ohr, and the tzemer. In our case, it's not it's wool. It's cyrus. Always grows from the ohr, from the skin. The same is true with animals. The same is true when it comes to sheep. When it comes to the wool, that ohr and that tzemer doesn't go on the mizbeach. That goes to the kohen. It goes to the person. It can't become nichlol mamish in the eish of reich nechayach l'Hashem. That's the element of the ohr. This is where the rachamim of tefillah come out. Till Perek Daled, the Maimon was addressing the atzamos, the moyach, the basar, the gidden, the atzamas, the blood, that all get applied on the mizbeach or on the side of the mizbeach with the carbon tamid. Now he's finally addressing that last stage. When you're done with the carbon, what happens now? The wool and the ohr, the skin, goes to the kohen. That's the halacha. All karbonis oila, the animal was flayed. The skin was we say oila damaton utuna hefshet. You have to hefshet. Hefshet is your mafshet. You skin. You skin the animal. In this case, it was a sheep, and you give the ohr and the tzemer to the kohen, which could be expensive. Ohr and tzemer was a very nice addition, a very nice pras for the kohen who served in the Beis Hamikdash. Here in Davening, this is the element of Rachel Lefnei Goyzezen Lama. It's the hergish of the Rachamim that doesn't come from the inspiration, and therefore it's not Reich Nechayach. It comes from the brokenness, the tragedy of the human condition. That such greatness sometimes becomes involved in such toxicity. Such greatness falls and evolves into places where it's not recognizable anymore. You don't see it anymore. Rabbi Aaron Haggadah, Rabbi Aaron Karliner said that the greatest tragedy in life is when the prince starts believing that he's not a prince anymore. When he believes that he's just a valueless doormat. When the prince doesn't know who he is, he's a Ben Melech, he says there's nothing more painful than that. That's the Rachamim. Yeah, I think the individual soul of a person, the individual neshama of a person.
What's the connection of Oisius to the
Sidus, okay. So what's the nimshal now? The whole world, we say, Ba'asara Ma'amaris Nivra Ha'olam. The world is Oisius. The world is made up of letters. Today today it's very illustrative in science, the world of DNA. What is the core of the body, or any organism? We have 100 trillion cells. Each cell, so you understand how small a cell is, within each cell you have what's called the genome, the DNA, basically the manual for how this body has to function. Each cell has a copy of the whole manual. Now you know that if you would take this DNA and compare it to a Megillah and spread it out, it would probably be the size of 3 times the Empire State Building. And that's all in one cell of 100 trillion cells. And this was all a mistake, by the way, also. It was random. And every organism has this. Every organism has this. It's not normal. The DNA is unbelievable. And not only that, the DNA, the cell also has an editor who travels around the cell and looks through the DNA and fixes any mistakes. It has an editor to go through and fix it. He's dealing with the size that we can't even imagine how small it is. And every cell has 2 copies, a double copy. 2 copies of the manual for the entire body. Even a cell that you could find in the pinky of your foot has the whole diagram, the whole description, and they call it today letters, Oisius. They call it, that's almost like the code of a programmer, the back end of a computer, but endlessly and infinitely more sophisticated. So essentially the whole world, when you go down to it, is basically made up of Oisius. It's made up of letters. Ba'asara Ma'amaris, Vayomer Elokim Yod, it's made up of letters. Oisius. All these Oisius contain energy. But the Chiddush here is that once they go into the world of Oisius, they become Nifrit. What do we mean Nifrit? So we go back to the beginning of the Maimer. Before the world was created, Hayahu Shmai Bilvad, there was no Yesh. The Yesh was submerged in the Ayin. What do we mean by Yesh here? The Oisius of Elikus were completely submerged in the source. What is Brias Ha'olam? That Elikus becomes a Yesh. Back to the mashal. The light wave leaves the solar core. It becomes recognizable. Where were the Oisius before? Completely submerged. The moment there is creation, may ayin liyesh, even in the highest worlds, there's already an element of period. The Oisius come out to start creating, which is a koyach elokei. To give the mashal of the teacher and the student, you have a teacher who's explaining things with Oisius. More, they say, I don't understand. He'll give you more Oisius. More Oisius. Where were all these Oisius before? He knew the concept. The Oisius were submerged in his mind. He didn't need them because he understood the concept. But when he's talking to a student, the student doesn't understand. He says, give me a mashal. Suddenly he has hundreds and thousands of new words to explain it. Where did these words come from? Where were they? The answer is they were all there in the seichel, but they weren't necessary. The sun doesn't need the ray of the sun in order to live. We, who live on a dark planet, enjoy the rays of the sun. The sun itself, the ray is pretty superfluous. It's like, oh, tell the sun, by the way, you have a ray, why don't you give it a little chivas, make a bracha on the ray? I don't have to make a bracha on the ray. It's B'chlal Messiah Mana, right? Within 200 you have 100, and here it's more than 200. So the Oisius are just submerged. They emerge. For the Talmud, however, the Oisius become everything. His access to the Seichel of the Rav is only through Oisius. What for the Rav is the most insignificant layer of the wisdom is for the Talmud the source of all the wisdom. What for the Rav is the most, you understood what I said? So therefore, these Oisius represent Cyrus. They all come from the Chiyus, but you can't compare the life that's expressed in the strands of hair to the life that's expressed in the soul, to the life that's expressed in the flesh. And each side is separate. Why? Because that's where period comes out, individuality comes out. The way the world is submerged in its source, there's no diversity. Back to the ideas of Akudim. You remember we spoke about Olam HaAkudim, Olam HaNekudim, the world where everything is one. Why? Because all division comes from differentiation, from separation. So Cyrus, every hair is separate. Every side is separate. There is Chiyus. What's Pshat cutting the hair? This is already a different level. The world is alive. We exist. There's consciousness. That is already a tzimtzum reaction. There is separateness. I, the very feeling of I. Even the highest worlds. There's a spiritual reality, but it's still a yesh. That already means that it came out from a state of ayin, because it's not anymore the source itself. It's the way Hashem allowed the water to trickle out, the tipa to come out of the Yam Ukiyanas, even though really it's still there. But from our perception, it's separated, and that could only be because there's skin in the middle. There's a hefsek. There's a tzimtzum. The life is blocked. Because the life force is blocked, therefore there could be me'ayin liyesh. Meaning the highest form of ayin liyesh is still a result of a blockage. If there wouldn't be skin, if there wouldn't be oil, if there wouldn't be a chatzitza, a mechitza, you would never have the oisius. The oisius would remain completely concealed and submerged in the source. In order for there to be any form of separation, separateness, you need the oil. But at least the oisius are attached. You look at the world and you could say, it's oisius. I don't get the core here, because if I would get the core, I would say, Einoid Milvadai, there wouldn't be no I. But at least I can trace back the hair to the person. What happens when you cut the hair? When you cut the hair, you put the hair, it's now a museum display. You don't recognize anymore the connection. There's no life. Cutting the nails, cutting the hair. It's a whole different experience. What does this mean in Ruchnius? It means when you cut off the oisius from their source. So you look at a physical thing and you don't see it anymore as a divine manifestation. You look at yourself and you say, I'm just a piece of flesh. I'm just a physical, materialistic nobody. I'm just a mistake, an infinitesimal blimp on the surface of this planet, and that's it. You look at something and you say it's merely physical and there's nothing else, you just cut off the hair from its source, from the oil.
But to say that if the hair was still connected, we would perceive that there's a connection. But then, by definition, we wouldn't be perceiving ourselves as a yesh if we thought there was still a connection. How can you have it both ways?
Right, well, it depends what you mean by yesh. There's yesh and there's yesh. There's pirud and there's pirud mamish. There's yesh as identity, and there's yesh as detached. I once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Taich and Pirkei Avos, Kol ha'omer davar b'shem omeroi, mevi geula la'olam. Somebody who says something in the name of the sayer, of the one who said it, you bring redemption to the world. Shenemar v'ataymer estel hamelech b'shem Mordechai. What's the Havana? You say something in the name of the one who said it, mevi geula la'olam. What's the Havana? So he touched it al pi pnimius. Ha'omer davar b'shem omeroi means, davar means a word, it also means a thing. Ha'omer davar b'shem omeroi means everything in the world, you identify the shem omeroi. Baruch sha'amar v'haya ha'olam. Ba'asara ma'moris nivra ha'olam. V'yomer elikim nasa adam. Ha'omer davar, everything in the world, your omer, you say it b'shem omeroi. You identify the name of the one who speaks it into existence. That's what you do. There's no phenomenon in the world that you look at that you don't see the Shem Oimroi, the one who said it. What happens? Mevi geula la'olam. You redeem the world from its own helam v'hester. Olam, the Gemara says, Psachim is melashon helam, concealment. When you're oimer, you identify the Shem Oimroi, you redeem the world from its state of concealment. The heißt nuchem apshat. Mevi geula la'olam. You liberate the world from its own concealment, from its own helam. You identify the core. You identify the core energy. You redeem it from its own trappings that don't allow you to see what it is. It begins with yourself. To be able to look at yourself and identify yourself b'shem oimroi. That's the idea of the oisius always being connected, because they're oisius, they're dvar Hashem. So I look at the world and I see divine manifestation. That's what I see. And this goes back to the famous vart we spoke about once, that's brought in Chassidus from Pirkei Avos. Amar Rabbi Yaakov, you remember? Hamahalech b'derech, you're hiking, v'shoyna, you're learning, or mafsik v'mishnasai, you stop the learning. V'oymer, you say, Mana ilan zeh, mana nir zeh, what a beautiful tree, what a beautiful landscape. Look at this Grand Canyon. Or as somebody once said, when God created the Grand Canyon, He did not create the adjectives with which to describe it. So you're looking at it and you say, wow, you endangered your life. Where did you endanger your life? You're taking a hike with your kids. You're discussing a sugya in Psachim, or a sugya in Ksuvis, or a sugya in Rosh Hashanah. And then you say, wow, Kinderlach, Gita Kok of the Ebershtes Welt. Mana Ilon Zeh, look at this tree. Who are you praising? You're praising God. There's brachas that Chazal were misaken for phenomena in nature. Mischaya benafshi, whenever you... There's psukim and Tillim, we say every day, Marabu Masach Hashem, Barchi Nafshi, a lot of Mizmorim and Tillim. David the Teichi can't learn. He was in the Sanhedrin. He stopped and he said, wow, Gibakuk, Hakfirim Shoyagim Latoref, etc. Mischaya benafshi. So the pshat is, the Mishnah says one introduction. Amahalach b'derech v'shoyna umafsik m'mishnasai. You interrupted your learning. V'oimer mana ilonza. You're basically, you a mafsik. Mafsik means to cut. You cut off the hair. You cut off the hair. For you, the beauty of the tree has nothing to do with Torah. There's two worlds. Me learning. Now let's take a break from Torah and let's discuss the tree. Aha, that means you missed the whole boat. You missed the point. Mana Ilanzeh is also Torah. It's not two worlds. There's no two worlds. There's heaven and there's earth. Heaven is Torah, and in earth, suddenly you become what you become. It's one Nikud, it's one Inyan, it's Achdus. Maybe Geula La'olam. But for this, you have to be able to see the Shem Oimra. In every Dover, you have to be able to see the Shem Oimra.
It's very good past that the Vart is, Vart is that therefore it's Shitaso that it starts with Mordechai and Esther in Megillas Esther, where the whole concept was held, where the whole Mesa of Purim was held. So the whole idea of Meir nice. Olam should come from
very
that.
Nice. Say the Raya is from Esther. The whole union of Esther is Aster Pone Bayomahu. Very beautiful. Especially it says in Medrash that whenever it says Melech in Megillas Esther, it's a mashal for Hashem. Achar is V'reishis Shaloi. So you say, V'ataymer Esther, the Hester comes back to the Melech. Beautiful, beautiful tzushta. Mevi Geula. That's the concept of the Oisius. Essentially, therefore. Essentially. When you cut the Oisius, what do you have here? You have the pirud of the universe from its source completely. In our mind, that's what he says. You're looking at the world, and it really appears as a davar nifrid mamish. You look at yourself, and you don't see your own kedusha. You don't see your own godliness, your own divinity. And you're quiet while it's happening. You're quiet while it's happening. And that's the rachamim of the kevis. That's the rachamim. That's silence. Now we know in our generation we have a very sad illustration for this. How many children, their dignity was cut off, but they were silent. They didn't know that they're allowed to speak. That's worse than the crime. The crime is the crime. What's even worse is that the person internalizes it. You give me a punch, you gave me a punch, it hurts. But when I start believing that I deserve the punch, and that you were right and I'm wrong, and if I tell you that he punched me, you're not going to believe me, etc., etc., here is where I internalize that. That's the Ne'alama. Ne'alama is not that somebody abused me. It's that I started to abuse myself as a result. I was completely quiet. I started to believe that Sekumt mir, I deserve it. He's the tzaddik, I'm the rasha. And the first time I told my father what happened, he smacked me instead of believing me. He said, how do you have a chutzpah to say this? Now what happens? The people you're supposed to trust, you can't even tell them. So it all goes inside forever. One day when you have to face this, the right word for this is, you need compassion. Compassion for what happened to you. Compassion for what happened to your dignity. Identify who you really are and how it got stuck, ne'alama, as you got separated from your own source. But essentially, this is a cosmic condition. The cosmic condition is, basically, we are silent in the presence of our own separation. The Rachel stands there, and therefore Akara. There's no Ava, there's no Yira. How could there be Ava and Yira? She doesn't feel connected. If I don't feel connected, how can I love? Love means connection. I don't feel connected. I'm completely in my own box. There's no Ava, there's no Yira. I have to have Rachamim, I have to have compassion. This is a very compassionate message. Extremely compassionate message. You have to have Rachamim. It's not about blaming yourself. It's not even about guilt. It's about having compassion for what happened, having compassion for the state of reality. And that compassion leads from Tikkun Rachel to Tikkun Leah. From Tikkun Chatzois is Rachel Mavaka al Banah. What's that Rachel Mavaka al Banah? Koil Beram Nishma. Nehi B'chi Samrurim. You remember the pasuk, at least from the Niggin, no? We'll sing in the Niggin. Rachel Mavaka al Banah Me'ana Lihinochem Ki Einenu. So here the Taich Mavaka al Banah is not only she cries for her children, Mavaka al Banah Ki Einenu. She cries for the child who was never born. Rachel Akara. She cries for the potential that never came out. How many dreams were stifled and snuffed out? They could never be born. The person remained barren. The person remained infertile. They didn't believe that they have anything to contribute. More than a biological condition, that's on one level. We're talking here about the psychological condition. That's the concept of Rachel Mavaka al Banah. That's the Tikkun Chatzois, Tikkun Rachel, because of the Ne'elama, the silence. So he says, V'hinei, B'chinis keves v'rachmanis, B'chinis Yaakov, Shahaya roya tzayin lava. That's why, what do you do with the tzemer and the oir? That you don't put on the mizbeach. The tzemer and the oir is valuable, it goes to the kohen. Because the tzemer and the oir represents the hefsek. What goes onto the mizbeach is the oneness, going back to oneness. The tzemer and the oir is the separation. That goes to the kohen. No, you have to recognize that. But this brings out the rachamim of davening. The tzemer and the oir is what allows for rachamim in davening. So what we have here in this maimer is very interesting. Till Perek Daled, he speaks very, very deep states of consciousness. The basar and the gidden and the atzamas and the dam and the hisboinenus and eidnoid mulvadoi lemi yechpet zulasai, right? You remember? And the ava and the chelev and this. Perek Daled now is another dimension of davening, and that is, I don't feel anything, my dear. I don't have any ava. I don't have any yira. I'm completely detached. I'm completely separated. That's also part of the carbon tumid. That was also part of the. Don't think you're not part of the carbon tumid. Welcome to the club. Welcome to America. Yeah, bruchim abayim. People think that they're the only ones who struggle. That's also part of the carbon tumid. A whole other ceremony. With the or, with the tzemes. This is where berachamecha rab rachem aleinu is. The person ought to feel compassion for that itself. That's because of the hefsek of the oir, and not only that, the second hefsek of the hair being cut off. Now he says, "V'hinei b'chinas keves v'rachmanas, he b'chinas Yaakov shayaroyet tzayin lava." Yaakov is midas harachamim, and that's why he is the shepherd who deals a whole day with the tzayin, with the flock, with the sheep. Gam Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom hayaroyet tzayin Yisrael. Then there was Moshe who also shepherded the flock. Yaakov is a royet tzayin, and Moshe is a royet tzayin, and both do this as a full-time occupation. I mean, everybody was a shepherd. Avram had sheep, and Yitzchak had sheep. But with Yaakov and Moshe, we have it as Yaakov for 20 years spent time with sheep. What was he doing for 20 years? That's Pshat. Vayishak Yaakov leRachel vayeth. Now you understand. Rachel is the sheep. Rachel is the ewe. Yaakov is midas harachamim. Yaakov kisses the sheep vayefk. So he says in Tanya Vayishak, when you kiss somebody, your breath goes into their breath. Yishakenim in the shikas piyu. Vayishak Yaakov leRachel. Yaakov is mizdabek, his pnimius with Rachel, with the sheep. Vayefk, and he's ma'oire rachamim on the Rachel lefnei goyzazah ne'elama on the Rachel mevaka al baneha. That mevaka begins from Yaakov's mevaka. Moshe is also royet tzon Yisrael. Achisa b'zoya Moshe milgov shuraya mehemna v'Yaakov milbar. But the Zohar says Moshe is on the inside, Yaakov is on the outside. Both are shepherds, both are connected to Rachamim, Moshe Milgav, Yaakov Milbar. Moshe is Raya Mehemna, the shepherd. Raya Mehemna means the faithful shepherd, or the shepherd of faith. That's Milgav. Va'inyan. Ki hine Yisraelus Rachmana Zui mitzad hadas. She has sag begdula seirin soif baruch hu shekishmoi keinu ein loy soif ve'ein aroichelav. All rachamim comes from das. If there's no perception, there won't be rachamim. You have to know what's really happening to feel bad. Without das, there's no rachamim. That's pshat kol mi she'ein boideya. The Gemara says, also l'racham alav. Rachamim always comes from das. Das produces empathy. When a person really understands the concept of Ein Sof, asher lezois k'sheyasim meliboy, shesham ha'isen nishmasei klula b'matzila baruch hu terem yiridas, v'yar deployim mata mata, yo'ir rachamim rabim beliboy ma'oid al goydel oitzim ha'yirida. Ma'shenkin k'sheim by das, kol derech ish yasha be'enav. To have das is so necessary because then you understand what your soul is. You understand what your soul really is made of. Your soul is included in Hashem before its Yerida, and you understand how deeply its descent was, and then you could really have true rachamim on it. When you don't have that das, then you're not sensitive to what's going on in your life. It's like the addict their brains are so fried, they don't even know there's nothing wrong. They think that life is great, not because they're good, because they're so detached. They're not even attached to the point that they could feel pain. When you feel pain, that's where you start your recovery. When you don't feel pain, you're the worst off.
But that also needs rachamim. The Jew who doesn't even realize what he's missing also needs rachamim.
No, of course. The Rebbe Rashab once said, "Kol mi shein by das aser el rachem alav." He says, "As Teure sagt, am Tanish Rachmanis habenafem, kann man verstehen echt the Geudel harachmanis of Hazayid." When Torah says you're not allowed to have compassion for him, you can understand what a rachmanis it is. But the point here is that rachamim needs das on every level. People who have das can have rachamim. Without das, there's no rachamim, because you're just like blind on every level. There's no perceptiveness. There's no rachamim. When a person starts feeling bad for themselves in a real way, bad I mean when they have compassion for themselves, then it means they know. Awareness produces pain and hence rachamim. The lack of awareness produces illusory bliss that's based on cluelessness. So he says, "K'maymer b'rachamecha harabim v'nei hamshachas hadas b'neshamas Yisrael v'ayidei Moshe raya mehemna." The one who introduces das into neshamas Yisrael is Moshe. He's called raya mehemna, the shepherd of emunah, meaning he teaches raya mehemna, not the faithful shepherd, the shepherd of emunah, the one who shepherds Jews with das. Ki Moshe shushvina de malka. It says in Zohar, when you go to the chuppah, you need an unterführer. Shushvina. The chassan has a shushvina de kala. Hashem went to the chuppah by Matan Torah. Who was God's unterführer? Somebody had to help Hashem kevayachol. Moshe shushvina de malka. Aaron was the shushvina of matronissa, of the kala. Aaron always represented the kala, and Moshe represents chassan. Is mitzad chassan, mitzad kala. You'll see all the debates between Moshe and Aaron. Moshe is mitzad chassan, Aaron is mitzad kala. Oyev shalom, roidev shalom, oyev sapriyas, etc. Vaydes and nemshach liyas b'chinas Yaakov, b'chinas harachmanis, v'zem Moshe Milgav, Yaakov Milbar. Moshe is the das that produces Yaakov, which is the rachamim. The inside of rachamim is das. The more das, the more rachamim. The more awareness, the more pain. The more perceptiveness, the more compassion. The moment you perceive real things, there'll be much more compassion, always. Real das, all lack of rachamim is always a lack of das. You always see in a conversation with somebody, try to explain to them a situation, and they're clueless, and therefore they can't be rachamim. They just don't understand. They're not even open to knowing that they don't understand. They're not open to it. The more das, the more rachamim. So Moshe is the inside of Yaakov. It's the pnimius of Yaakov. They're both shepherding flock, which is midas harachamim. So now he comes back to finish the answer to the original question he asked in the beginning of the Maimer. Anybody still remembers the question? It was a while back. So let's recall and we'll see the final answer. he brought these are psukim that we say every morning, right? Tzav is b'nei Yisov amarta lehem es karboni lach milishav amarta lehem zeisha shatakrivu l'Hashem kvosim b'nei shana smimim shnaim lehem elasamit. First he asked why it says twice v'amarta. Tzav is b'nei Yisov amarta lehem es karboni lach milishav rech nichaychi v'amarta lehem. Why you're saying so amarta lehem and just say it. Weiter he asked. First it says asher takrivu, and then it says ta'aseh. Are you being makriv or are you doing it? A third question, takrivu loshen rabim, ta'aseh loshen yachid. So first he explains that the kaifel of Amira is, one is Bizman Beis HaMikdash, and one is L'doirus is Tefillah. Savas b'nei Yisov amarta alehem miyad is Karbonis, and the second amarta alehem is Tefillah. If you look at the two psukim, you'll now see one captures Karbonis, one captures Tefillah. Savas b'nei Yisov amarta alehem is Karboni lachmi, L'isha rech nichoyche tishmer lakli v'moyadeh is this man Beis HaMikdash. V'amarta lahem is the way it's going to replicate in generations. Zeh ha'isha shetakrivu l'Hashem kvasim neishana smim v'shnayim lo'yem ha'elasam. Of course, it's also the carbon, but it also includes the concept of tefillah. So you ask the question, how could you compare the two? Kvasim, you took a keves that was a year old, or within a year, and you were makriv it. What does that have to do with tefillah, which is rachamah? Why is a carbon reich nichayach l'Hashem? And for this he started the whole tachlis. You read this on Neshama, why the Neshama came down into the guf. You read the tzarech aliyah. The whole aliyah of the yesh back into the ayin with the tzchoik, with elevating the carbon, and from this he went into the sheep with all the different stages. The whole arichas of the maimer. Mi ayin liyesh, mi yesh la'ayin. So now he comes back. And he says, now we'll understand everything, and we're going to understand the shinu in the second pasuk. Zeh ha'isha asher takrivu l'Hashem kvasim neishanas mim shnayim lo'yem elasam zakeves echad tasa. First takriv, then tasa. You could have said zakeves echad takriv ba'boiker, or zeh ha'isha asher tasu. That's number one. Number two, loshen yachid, loshen rabim. So he says, v'zeh inyan shenemar zeh asher takrivu loshen rabim ki akravas hakeves ubchinas harachmanis u'mitzvah l'chol Yisrael. Aloshin, to be makriv the sheep, which is basically the inyan of Rachmanis, is a mitzvah on every Jew. This experience of having compassion for your soul and for another person's soul, this is every single Jew. This is shaykh to every person. Nobody could say, I'm too low to have rachamim. You could say, I'm too low to have avos Hashem. I don't feel anything. But when you say, I'm so low, I don't have rachamim. What do you mean? That's why you have rachamim. Fakert. That's why there's no stage in life where you're not shaykh to midas harachmanas. There's no stage. What are you going to say? I'm detached, I'm apathetic, I couldn't care less. That's exactly why you should feel compassion. Such a soul feels nothing, or thinks it feels nothing. So there's no stage in life where rachamim cuts you off. Rachamim is the midah that is mavriach min hakotza la kotza. Briach hatichin, it says about rachamim. Midas Yaakov. There's no stage where you say he's too beyond it, he's too low. Midas harachimim by davening, every person can have. Feel bad. Feel compassion for yourself. Feel compassion for your soul. Feel compassion for your child. Feel compassion for others. And if you don't feel compassion for that. Feel compassion for the fact that you don't feel compassion. And if you don't feel that, then feel compassion for that. That you don't feel compassion for the fact that you don't feel compassion. You like that? That even applies to everybody. You can't say, I'm so removed. I got it. That's why you should feel compassion. Fakert, the more removed, the more rach. This is mitzvah l'chol Yisrael. Rak shenikra by the ara kohen iron sheshvina the matronis. Who is the one who brings it to the mizbeach? For this you need Aaron, who is the mechutin of the kala, the unterfirer of the kala. Moshe represents the malka, Aaron represents the bride. So Aaron is the one who brings it to the mizbeach. Just like the kala, she gets married. But who helps her to the chuppah? The unterfirer. That's Aaron HaKoyen. That's the Koyen. He brings the rachamim up. He brings you. He ushers you in. He brings in the carbon. He brings in the blood. Mashenkin lasois hakeves. That's hakrovas hakeves. But to create the keves, shu is oiridus v'ishavus b'chinas harachmanas lasois b'navshoy ksiv tasa loshen yochid v'koya Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom atzmai shehu haya oisa umamshech hadas b'neshamas Yisrael lasis ulo oiridus harachmanas b'chdei sheyavel lo aftas Hashem alekecha b'chol levavcha b'klois hanefesh mamash. That's the Lashon Yochid, Lashon Rabbah. There's Takriv and Tasa. Takriv means you have something and you bring it close. Tasa means you have to create it. Takriv means bring it close. Tasa means create it. There's two elements. The Takrivu, that every Jew has a mitzvah on the Rachamim. Who creates the Rachamim? In other words, who creates this Nekuda? Lasois benafshay. To create the Das and Neshamas Yisrael. To introduce, to be mamshech, to create in every soul of a Jew the perceptiveness, the depth, the kesher, the ability to be able to be makriv is midas harachmanas, to be able to be makriv himself. This comes from Moshe. Es hakeves ha'echad tasav haboker. Hashem is talking to Moshe. V'zeu oila b'bchinas reyach. That's why it's called oila. Oila means it goes up as a reyach. V'achakach nichoyach loshen nechoyz darga. Nichoyach means noch, nachas, linchoyz, to land, coming down. Sheinam shachas oirin seiv baruch hu b'tzirufei oisis atfila. Roifei choyle b'mavarech hashanim chuli. Sheim b'chinas seiris hatzemer. Hanem shachin min ha'or lebilti ois b'chinas nifrit. In davening you have the reyach, which is the smell that goes up as an oila, and then you have the nichoyach. As a result of that, it comes back down to be able to see in oisius the connection. The whole problem became that the oisius were cut. That's why davening is made up of oisius. L'chayre davening should be meditation. L'chayre davening should be machshava. Why is the whole davening made up of oisius? People often get frustrated. Mezukta, 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 mezukta. So that's when you don't understand. It really says because the kavanah of davening is to bring it back down into the oisius of the world, to be able to see the oisius of the universe b'shem oimre as reflecting their source. That's why he brings Reifei Cholim of Baruch Hashanim, which are things that talk about the physical universe. Baruch Aleinu of Baruch Hashanim. Lebilti Yos b'chinas. Valza Amar. This is Pshat. The Gemara says shesandal. There's a malach called Sandal. Koishik Sarim lekoinoi mitzirufei oisius atfilah. From the words of davening, he weaves crowns for his creator. He takes the words, the letters of the Jews, and he takes the letters and he makes crowns. So he says, "Shanas b'chinas tainug v'keser mamash." The keser is the highest element above the head, which is tainug, the pleasure, the ratzon that comes even before chachma. From the oisius, which are l'chayre, the here that has been detached, from that becomes the greatest tainug, because from the yesh you went back to ayin. From the yesh, from the oisius, you went back to ayin, you went back to keser. So he takes the oisius atfil and he turns it into the tainug of Hashem. He makes crowns of the oisius of davening, and the Balatanya finishes the maimer v'dai lemavin. This will be enough for the one who understands. This is the end of the maimer.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.